All right, we got our forester on site now. We got Tim Nicholas with Kretz Lumber up here in Northwest Wisconsin. And we're going to kind of talk about the process we go through when you're a hunter and you buy a piece of land for hunting and it's got this beautiful timber on it. Most people don't want to cut any of it. And we'll talk about why you want to cut it, how you can kind of balance the aesthetics with what it's going to do to the deer hunting, income potential, maybe even some forestry programs. But I know how to identify most of these trees. I couldn't tell you what they're worth to a nickel. I can say we have value here, but I can't identify that. That's where you got to bring in somebody of repute so you don't get taken. You got, if there's veneer logs, there's saw logs, there's chip logs, pulp, whatever they're doing. What are we going to do out here today when we look at this property I bought?
Basically, what first objective is to understand the landowner's objective and goals for the property. Going to keep it long term. What is he actually looking for? Brooks is looking for hunting, recreation, and obviously income from a timber sale on this property. So
we're going to bring in the loggers. We're going to make some improvements to the property with that revenue that are going to make the deer flow how we want them to flow and make it a property that's just a lot easier to hunt.
So that's going to work hand in hand with Brooks's goal for, openings and creating wildlife habitat for deer hunting and so forth.
So on a property like this, where it's super wide open, we come in and look at it, we want to at least create some pockets that are like this. We want to set back the clock in some pockets to create edge, but give those whitetails what they want, which is food during the day too. So if you have these thick pockets in the woods, they'll bed right on the leeward side or the downwind side of those pockets. They'll put that thick cover to their back, and they'll make it so they can see this way.
Likelihood of getting oak wilt because of their age, so you want to get that out and be more aggressive over there.
It's pretty cool. Carrie's 6'4". This is just a huge white pine.
Got a lot of oak seedlings in the understory that are established already, and by taking out the bigger, larger stems, those seedlings will then have a chance to start growing at a much faster pace.
First couple of years of a timber harvest, that aspen regeneration, and that regen's going to be a lot of food.
A selective harvest on the south side where there's younger timber, but a more aggressive harvest on that north side where there's more mature timber.
If there's 20 of these topographic spots in the section they live, if we have 2 or 3 of those, and we give them everything they want in those areas, they might use it 80% of the time instead of 20% of the time. It makes them more predictable, and it allows us to plan our access through the woods to capitalize on that.
And when Tim gets all done, I'm going to basically have a map of my property that's going to tell me where these different lines are in the timber and what's there, what the ages are, what the forestry recommendations are. And then when we're working with customers on stuff like that, I'm looking at that map and I'm talking to that landowner who's going to have different goals. They're afraid they're going to ruin the aesthetics. And you don't have to cut everything really heavy, and sometimes it doesn't even call for it. But if we know, if we have that map with the plan of what your timber looks like, we have some estimates on what the income can be. We can look at where it's going to cut and how that can work with us for improvements. Is that going to become bedding? Do we want to put a food plot in there? While they bring in the heavy equipment, that's when we can make some of these changes. That's when we put those food plots in, and you don't have to pay for somebody to mold that equipment in because it's already here. Another difference is going to be where we put in the trails to skid out the trees. Typically on a property like this, we're going to take the middle of the property and everything just bleeds in there and goes out one direction. We might say, hey, we're willing to pay a little extra money because I want access from the north line and I want access from the south line, so I'm not going up the middle and blowing up my deer every time I hunt. So that's some differences we can make.
Remember, in your woods, if the whole thing is attractive to deer, it's very difficult to hunt because you don't know where they're at. If we improve places and we know the deer are there, we can avoid surprising the deer with our sight, sound, and smell, and they will use that deer because they feel very, very safe there. Same with the food. If we put our food in places that we can get to, knowing where the deer bed, and we're getting in and out of there without the deer knowing we're hunting them, they're going to use it very, very consistently. So as we work on the 40 and as we work on the 80, those will become our goals.
We general contract a lot of these projects with people to help them understand all the players. The foresters are a big player. The logging guys are a big player. These guys can make sure that when your loggers come in, what we think is done, they're going to hold them to that expectation. They're not going to take trees that they're not supposed to. We're going to mark the logs and get the full value of them. If we want the tops out, we pull the tops out. If we want the tops piled up for a visual barrier, we'll do that. And we can do all these things to dot all the I's and cross the T's to not only respect and manage the timber aspect of it, but to realize the full potential of your property, because that's what we do with the plan. So
If you know what the deer are doing and you can figure out how to slip in and be a part of their day without them knowing it, that's when you're going to enjoy success from the beginning of the season all the way to end. And what we're going to do in here with the saws and the timber we're pulling out of here and the plots we put in, that's the end goal. Take care of the woods and make an orderly fashion of movement through here so that everybody can enjoy the deer hunting in here.
Having a timber harvest done on your property, in my opinion, is the #1 factor in influencing how deer use the property. And we can do things to bed them where we want them, make them feed where we can access, and make everything work together. And if you have enough timber value to get a guy in there and do some work, and you talk through it and you're not scared to do it, I think it's the best investment you can make in making your deer woods really become the best deer woods it can be.
Absolutely.
But then for the next decade, years 3 through 13, the deer have everything they want in that area, including that regeneration and browse.
When we set this up as a timber sale, the trees will actually be marked, you know, so the landowner is going to know what trees are going to be harvested. We don't want to harvest that. We just put black paint over it and leave that. Maybe that landowner wants it for a deer stand, that tree.
The landowner can come out during the marking process, during the harvest, and find a property that's got some timber value on it, that it's going to cash flow a little bit for the improvements. But like I said, when it gets all done, the exciting part for me is I know 2 years from now, this place is going to hunt the best it possibly can for the way I like to hunt. Do I hunt bow, rifle, muzzleloader? Because you do things differently. On how many people do I have hunt? Is it just me? Do I have 4 guys coming out here with me? So all those things factor in on how you make the improvements and where you make the improvements.
There are some features that will funnel the deer, but if we build upon those things, we can make the deer do those things sometimes 8, 9 times out of 10 instead of just 1 and 2 times out of 10.
When we deal with landowners, no matter what contractor we bring into your property, is going to have general liability insurance, workman's compensation insurance on file with us before they do any work on your property. Insurance, so if anything happens, the landowner is not liable for anything. We've got that insurance policy.
Good.